Okay, good. So, yeah, again, thank you for attending our test. This is our day 2, no, for web development course, uh, TWSP test of project. All right. So, again, we're done with yung parang a recap, no, this morning. So, I just wanted to show you yung ano natin. So, make sure to have your own credential para ma-accomplish mo yung mga tasks dito, which is technically ACLC ang nag-develop nito. Alright, so it's a part of uh, yung during the synchronous and asynchronous. But anyway, since nasa web development tayo, and we're going to tackle the front end muna na side, which is the structure and design. Alright, so we're going to use the Materialize CSS. Alright, so it's not, sa industry, hindi lang Materialize CSS ang ginagamit namin. You can use Bootstrap, or Tailwind, Bulma, or other framework based on depende kung anong gusto nilang gamitin. Alright, sa isang project or kung ano yung mas prepared nila. So, I want you to, so, alright, so, saan mo nagpapadlet? Alright, Rinalyn. Hi, welcome, Rinalyn. So, later on, kapag medyo may, parang mas dumadami tayo kapag, ano no, so later on, we're going to have another class feature kasi test the monitor, minomonitor nyo talaga yung ano, attendance, and now, uh, yung pag-check ng attendance is based on the ano, class picture or screenshot ng mga nag-attend. Alright? So yun, so basically tulad ng sabi ko sa inyo, Materialize is a modern responsive front-end framework based on material design. Kapag sinabing material design, ang nag-develop nito is Google. Alright? So, develop and nag-maintain until na. Alright? So, ano yung purpose niya? So, meron siyang mga components like CSS components and JavaScript components. Right? And meron na rin dito mga grid system para maging responsive yung structure ng website. So, it's really good to use this. So, tulad yung sabi ko, for those who parang nagda-develop na rin, maybe you're quite familiar with a Bootstrap. So, Bootstrap is also a front-end framework, no? Para makapag-develop ng isang decent UI or mas maganda kagad kasi it has a components and so on. So, Materialize CSS has two components, CSS and JavaScript. So, pag sinabing CSS, it's a design of your parang your website. So, pag sinabing design, yung element mo, which is technically, element kasi is HTML, right? Or structure. So, what is HTML? It's a hypertext markup language. So, kapag sinabing markup, siya yung structure, right? Layouts, pero wala siyang kahit ano. Alright? So, using CSS, for example, this button has a structure, or it has an HTML. So, there's no other way to have this kind of button na hindi ka gagamit ng isang HTML element. Alright? So, using that, by adding CSS, magkakaroon ka ng ganitong height and width ng isang element. Alright? So, in this case, meron siyang height, tapos width. So, kaya yung button niya is medyo ganito kalaki. Alright? So, yun yung yun yung kayang gawin ng CSS. Alright? And, of course, meron tinatawag na SAS. Alright? So, it's a parang CSS preprocessor. Alright? So, parang ganun din. But anyway, doon naman sa part ng JavaScript para maging interactive yung website, no? So, lahat ng gumagalaw na parang components sa isang website is ang merong responsibility nun o kung bakit gumagalaw yun because of JavaScript. Alright? So, kapag hindi tayo gagamit ng isang framework, para lang magkaroon ka ng side nav, there's a lot of logic and function na you need to learn before you just need to add some interactive components or just to add a interactive parang element, no, yung parang let's say yun nga side nav. So kailangan marunong ka sa DOM or document object model, tapos you need to create a function. Alright, tapos yung logic mo. Alright, so you need to be at least a fluent or parang not just a fluent, maybe a parang comfortable that for that programming language. But nowadays, yung mga programming languages ginagamit for yung mas more important na task na for example, fetch an API, mga tipong ganun. So, which is, of course, hindi kaya ng mga framework yun. So, you need to, you need to learn all those programming language before you parang kapag fetch ka ng API or let's say just create a small application like to do app, alright? So yung parang you're going to have an input tapos mailalagay mo lahat kung ano yung mga gusto mong task. You're able to delete that, you're able to edit that, filter that, and so on. So, but pagdating naman dun sa UI lang, at least, we're going to use a framework. So technically, it's a Materialize CSS. So I want you to be more comfortable. So I will teach you the way kung paano binabasa or paano ginagamit itong documentation na to. So, I will teach you the way kung paano namin ginagawa. Alright? Kasi being a developer is one of the most important skills is you need to know the way kung paano gumagana lahat. Alright? So, hindi kami sobrang wizard or parang sobrang unique or sobrang talino na parang kapag inisip lang namin, alam na namin kagad yung sagot. No. We're depending on documentation and experiences or parang magaling din kami mag-research kung paano masusolusyon ng isang problem. And of course, based on dun sa mga bagay na uh, meron na kami at yung kaya namin gawin. Alright, so I want you to understand the way kung paano nag-work ito kasi this one is only 14 days and I want you to have a better, good-looking, decent UI. So, hindi natin ma-cover ng lahat ng to kasi ang dami natin dapat ma-cover. So, like a JavaScript. Sa JavaScript lang, sobrang haba na nun kasi it's a programming language. And of course, we have a PHP. At least meron tayong katulong dun sa part naman ng LMS. But we're going to discuss that also. Alright, so ito yun. So before, para magamit natin, just make sure to click this get started. Alright? Alright, so sabi niya dito, getting started, learn how to easily start using Materialize in your website. Alright, so mayroong mga few ways of kung paano ito ginagamit. Right, so may tinatawag na download. So Materialize comes in two different form. You can select with which version you want depending on your preferences and expertise. To start using Materialize, you have to do is download one of the option below. So ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. You can use Materialize CSS has may mga components na yan. Alright, so yung CSS and JavaScript components. And of course, yung other version niya, which is yung SAS. Alright, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo parang CSS preprocessor. It's a synthetically awesome CSS. Alright, so yun yan. This version contains the source of SCSS. And parang SAS at saka SCSS is something like parehas yun, no? Files. By choosing this version, you have more control over which components to include it. You will need SAS compiler if you choose this components option. Right? So basically, tulad ng sabi ko sa inyo, the SAS, parang pwede mo siyang gamitan ng you can able to declare a variable, right? So for those who parang familiar with programming, variable is like a container na taga-handle ng isang value. So sa CSS kasi hindi pwede yun, alright? So in that case, sa SAS is or SCSS is pwede. At hindi lang yan, you can also declare a function, a logic, the way kung paano mangyayari yung isang application or isang front-end development based on the CSS. So, sabi niya dito, you need to have a compiler. Yes, kapag sinabing compiler, you need to, parang hindi kasi nababasa ng browser yung SCSS. Madaling salita. Okay. So, kapag sinabing compiler, ito turn na yun lahat ng line of code ng SAS or ng SCSS sa CSS. Right? So, instead na parang ikaw mag-isip ng yung lahat-lahat ng haba-haba ng codes for the CSS para for the sake of kumana lang yung kayang gawin ng SAS. You need to learn the SAS, tapos compile nyo na lang. Alright, so, uh, well, hindi natin ito gagamitin, but we're going to use Materialize CSS. Right, so it has a components. So this is the standard version that comes with both and minified SCSS and JavaScript files. Right? So at least magkaroon ng parang mga components na okay, tatawagin mo na lang siya by class name and meron na pong mga methods. Pag sinabing method, it's already developed that on that framework. Alright. This option requires a little to no setup. Alright. Use this if you are unfamiliar with SAS. Right. So merong few tulad ng sabi ko sa inyo, way to use this Materialize CSS. So ito yung pag-downloads. Alright. Kapag dinownload mo yan, meron yung pagkalaki-laking file na may kita mo kung ano yung tsura ng yung components na yun. So, but anyway, sige, I will show you the way kung paano nag-work yung mga bagay-bagay so that medyo mag-familiarize kayo on kung ano yung dinidiscuss ko. Alright? Alright, so this is my lesson for that. To give you a better understanding on the way kung paano yun. Ibig sabihin na itong kapag dinownload nyo, what will be parang in-expect nyo. Something like this. Right? Ito yun. Oops. Right, so this one. Ito yung CSS components. Right, so instead na i-codes nyo to, alright, and of course, sobrang dami nito. Ang nag-develop nito is si Google, no? Or yung nagme-maintain ng Materialize CSS. Alright, so merong team for Materialize, no? So actually, in advance, kapag may mas mga complex front-end development, meron tinatawag na Material UI. So, medyo mas better or parang pang more advanced. So, instead of parang using JavaScript or using React.js, it's a library together with the Material UI. Alright? So, well, at your stage, since you're just starting learning web development, sabi ko nga sa inyo, sobrang rapidly changes, sobrang daming new features pagdating sa web development. But this one is really parang up to date and of course magagamit na siya at the same time. Maintindihan niyo yung kapag for those who wanted to mag-dive in more mas malalim, yeah, dun din papunta lahat ng ito. So, this one is a framework. So, kung pag sinabing framework, it's, yan, medyo developed na. So, from colors, alright, sige, someone nagpapadli. Si Sir Jose Marie, hi sir, welcome. No? So, but anyway, so kapag sinabing framework, so parang, let's put like this way, no? So, I'll give you an example because I wanted to spend more time to understand or to discuss this and understand kasi mas madali mag-codes. Alright? Lalo na kapag alam mo yung gagawin mo. So, I don't want you to parang just doing that for the sake of merong output na lumalabas. No, I want you to understand the way kung paano nag-work yung mga bagay. Kasi being a developer, it's more nakatingin kami with the way kung paano nag-work yung mga bagay. Right? So, I'll give you some parang idea the way kung paano yung mga perspective and attitude of being a developer. Right? Normal students or parang normal na tao is parang we wanted to just, okay, kumano na yan and we don't care about that. Right? So, for example, yung kotse, kapag pinindot mo yung start button, we don't care about kung paano na-develop yun kasi we are just user. Parang tayo lang yung gumagamit nun. But being a developer, you're always curious about paano kaya nangyari yun. And actually, we experience those ganitong pagkakataon. Kapag merong some errors with the program, the only way or the first parang question in our mind is why? Kapag hindi nagre-run yung program. And we're going to parang stare dun sa sa code editor namin and thinking what happened. And guess what? Kapag gumana yung program, the first question sa isip namin is, why? Bakit siya gumana? Alright? So, ibig sabihin, kapag hindi gumana, the question is why. Kapag gumana, the question is why. Kasi kapag hindi gumana, you need to have a solution kung bakit siya hindi gumagana. Alright? So, kapag gumana naman, the question is why. Kasi we wanted to understand para maaari namin gamitin uli yung logic na yun o kung paano nangyari. Right? So, I want it to be like that. So, kasi we can mag-dive in kagad tayo sa mga components and mag-enjoy kayo na parang okay, nakaka-develop na pero you really didn't understand kung paano at kung paano nag-work yung mga bagay. Alright? So, mas magiging mabilis kapag naintindihan nyo. Kasi parang, alright, so, again, I'm your trainer. I want you to parang tamang-tama yung the way kung paano yung gagawin. Nasa tamang path kayo. I'm not just a typical teacher na parang I'm going to give you a task then bahala kayo. Alright, so maraming teacher dito but I mean, I really respect the way kung paano nyo dinideliver, no? Pero I mean, in my case or in our case, I want you to more parang understanding. Alright? So, ito yung way kung paano nyo magagawa yung mga bagay. So, please kindly try to understand. So, instead of parang gumamit kayo ng mga sariling CSS. Alright? So, kung napansin nyo, meron tayong mga mga CSS dito na naka-define na. So, parang ibig sabihin, from colors to buttons and other components na hindi dito lahat. So, ito yun. So, ito yung framework na yun. So, we're going to call that based on class name. Alright, kasi may mga class name ito. Alright, so, ganun nag-work yun. Alright, so, let us put this way, no? So, for example, you are a cellphone technician. So, let's say yung mga tao dun sa Green Hills. This was this analogy, the way kung paano nag-work. Ito, para maintindihan niyo. Alright, so, meron lumapit sa'yo and merong magpapagawa ng cellphone. Alright? Kasi ang problem niya, nung chinek mo, yung battery niya is nagkaroon ng problem. Alright? So, okay. So, as a technician, you can parang ayusin. Of course, that's your job. So, pwede mong ayusin pa yung battery. But instead, you're going to use a components. Papalitan mo na lang yung battery, pahirapan mo ba yung sarili mo? Something like that. Alright, so, instead of parang, you're going to create a button, tapos, i-design mo siya based on your preferences, the way kung paano mo nakikita o maganda yung button na is, i-design mo. Baka mamaya hindi pa maganda yung, well, we're dine-develop natin yung mga application, not just for the sake of, para maganda sa mga mata natin, but para sa user. And then, it's really, yung mga framework is gamit na gamit kasi medyo yung katulad ng ganitong klaseng team like Materialize CSS is parang na siya napag-isipan ng mga professional developer and of course si Google na nag-create na ito o nag-maintain. So parang they make sure that magagamit to ng mga developer. Alright. Well, you can also do a custom CSS para to manipulate and to edit some parang features. Alright. So, let's go back on that example. So, instead of ayusin mo siya, yung ano na yun, yung ano ba battery na yan. Well, you can do that being diba, a technician. But, sasabihin mo na lang sa sa may-ari, medyo kahit na maging okay to pero hindi na siya maganda. So, let's just put some a new battery. So, ngayon, meron kang components, tapos, parang yung components na yun is, yun yung battery, gawa na siya. Tapos, kukunin mo na lang, tapos ikakabit mo dun sa cellphone na. And, okay na, gagana na yung, ano ba ito? What do you call this? Yung cellphone niya. Kasi napalitan mo na siya ng isang components or ng battery, technically. So, ngayon, etong itong part na to, na components na to, at sobrang dami na ito, you don't need to parang, just imagine, no? Meron kang stall lang sa Green Hills, no? Hindi pwedeng lahat ng stocks ilagay mo dun sa ano, sa ano ba to? Sa tabi ng ano mo, ng stall mo. Kasi masyadong marami kang stocks. Na parang lahat na lang ng mga kailangan ng pwedeng tao ng issue is nasa tabi mo para madali mo makuha. So yun yung downloads, alright? So meron kasing few ways to get all those components. So ito yung CSS, no? So pakita ko sa inyo yung JavaScript components. Ayan. Right. So nandito naman yung interactive JavaScript components. Alright, so kung napansin nyo kanina, puro ano lang, mga class name and parang property and value ng isang class for those who parang familiar with the web development and CSS. This one is puro naman function. Right, kasi we're going to use this mga methods na, which is technically, kapag sinabing methods, develop na siya. So parang particularly, let's say, uh, dun sa kotse, balik tayo sa push button. Right? So, kapag click mo yung push button, it's already method. Kasi meron na siyang certain behavior or action na ipaperform based on depende kung paano dinevelop nung developer yung function na yun. Alright, we're going to cover those things kapag nasa part na tayo ng JavaScript. Alright, we'll teach you the way kung paano mag-declare ng isang function and so on and so forth. But since parang I want you to have a decent and maayos na UI, we're going to use this Materialize CSS. So instead, meron ng mga components dito na kailangan na lang natin gamitin. And of course, para gumana yung line of code for, yeah, tama. Later on kasi we're going to use a jQuery plugins or jQuery library. Alright, so I will explain that kung bakit natin gagamitin. Alright, kasi nasa part pa lang tayo ng parang first step pa lang tayo. But once you understand this part and everything, nakaka-develop na kayo, nakakagawa na kayo, we're going to jump dun sa part naman ng JavaScript, which is a programming language. Alright? Para at least you have a better understanding kung paano nag-work lahat. But anyway, just to show you, may mga logic at kung paano return and so on. Tapos, ganito karami yan. So, parang tatawagin na lang natin siya by method, no? Tapos, mag-work na siya. Alright. So, yun yung sample no itong components na to. So, meron tinatawag na downloads, diba? Let's go back to that sa part ng lesson natin. Right, so meron tinatawag na downloads. Once you download that, mapupunta siya sa local machine niyo. Pag sinabing local machine, nasa computer niyo na siya. Literal kung gaano karami yung pinakita ko sa iyo, and you need to link that into your website or your project para magamit niyo yung mga components na yun. So, yun yung way of pag-download. So, parang dun sa analogy na na-explain ko sa inyo, parang you have an install na parang cellphone repair, tapos lahat ng stocks mo nasa tabi mo lang. Alright, so ano yung benefit na? Kapag dinownload mo tong file na to, even without an internet, you can able to use components. Gagana pa rin at makapag-develop ka pa rin. Alright, but the downside is medyo malaki yung file. Maaaring kapag mahina yung computer mo, babagal yung computer mo. Well, since right now, everything is parang nasa internet, so it's necessary to have an internet. So I would suggest use a CDN. What is CDN? CDN is Content Delivery Network. Lahat nung nakita yung file kanina, i-deliver na lang through internet. So as long as you have an internet, you were able to use those components. Alright, so yun yun. So, paano daw gagawin? So, instead of downloading that, you need to just link this to file. So, again, this Materialize CSS, diba sabi ko sa inyo, meron siyang CSS and JavaScript files or components. So, kukunin natin this line of code, right? It's a compiled and minified CSS, alright? Para magamit natin yung components. So, later on, I will walk you through the way kung paano mag-work yung mga bagay. Alright? Then, para magamit naman natin yung mga methods, alright, para sa interactive, kasi sa JavaScript yung yung merong responsibility on the way kung paano nag-work yung mga bagay na gumagalaw. We need to copy this and paste that dun sa part ng project na gagawin nyo or dun sa Visual Studio Code na so that you can able to use all those components. And it's really nice to have an experience lalo na dun sa mga you're just starting learning this. Sobrang, I mean, sa industry kasi ito yung ginagamit. Alright. So, meron din na natawag na NPM. It's a Node Package Manager. So, ano ba yung Node? So, yung Node is a runtime server. I mean, ni JavaScript. Kasi it's a, JavaScript is a front-end programming language. But, they created a, a server. I mean, not a programming language kasi it's not just parang a runtime lang. Kapag sinabi kasing framework, parang, well, yung mga, but anyway, a runtime. So, ibig sabihin, madaling salita, pwede mong gamitin sa JavaScript sa backend. Which is dapat pang frontend lang. Alright? So, it's in NPM or Node Package Manager. You need to install those Node para lang magamit tong Materialize mo. Alright? But we're not going to do that. So, you need to npm install Materialize as CSS dun sa terminal. Right? So, well, we're not jump to that, no? So, tapos mayroong Bower, ganun din. So, install Materialize CSS. Tapos ganun din magiging itsura. Tama ba? Yeah. But anyway, so we're going to use this CDN or content delivery network in that case, for this case. Okay, so, ang gawin natin is first, you need to create some folder. Alright? Somewhere kung saan yung local, I mean sa machine nyo. So, you can do document. So, ako gagawin ko is dito na lang siguro ako sa may pinaka-home ko kasi sobrang dami ko na sa documents and other path, no? So, I will right click and open some folder. Alright? And I will rename this one to maybe ACLC. Right? ACLC. Right? So, you need to create your own folder based on kung ano yung gamit nyo. You don't need to be, parang, I'm using, iOS, no? So, it's totally same with Windows and Linux. Just create your folder. Tapos, ilagay nyo kung saan nyo gustong ilagay. Kung sa desktop nyo ba gusto ilagay. Sa desktop kasi I wanted to malinis eh. So, that's why I'm putting here somewhere. Okay? So, make sure to have this folder. Tapos, pangalanan nyo na lang based on their preferences. And another thing, do not have a space for multi-word name. Let's say ito, web. Tapos space ACLC. As you can see, I'm using dash. Alright, you can use underscore dash, or you can also use camel case if you want. So let's see. Camel case. So web. Tapos ACLC. Right, so kapag sinabing camel case, the first word will be small letter. So ganito practice sa industry. Kasi hindi talaga sa programming hindi pwedeng meron kang spacing. So it's a convention, and of course maaaring magkaroon ng problem with your folder, lalo na kapag i-deploy mo kapag may mga bagay na hindi gagana because of in that case. So ang tawag dito is camel case. So the first word, so buong word yan, web. Tapos the second word, the first letter ng word na yun is naka-uppercase. So ang purpose nun is what? As a human, kapag multi-word kasi, mahirapan tayong magbasa. So kapag naka-uppercase, naka-camel case siya, so web, pababasa mo, tapos ACLC. Diba? Tapos you can do test that. Alright? So, kahit ganito siya, yung parang wala siyang spacing, nababasa siya. So, ang tawag dito is camel face. Alright, so usually we're going to discuss that during the kapag how to declare a variables. Ganun kasi sa variable hindi rin pwede yung mga space and so on. But anyway, so I'm going to use dash. Alright, tapos make sure to install your Visual Studio Code, and you need to do kung paano natin gagawin din. So we're going to open this. Kapag meron na kayo nito, alright, let's go here sa Explorer. Click nyo tong open folder. Alright, so after the pag na-open yung folder nyo, so just look for that yung folder na specific na nilagay nyo ng name. Alright, then open that. Alright, so kapag ganito, just trust the authors. Alright, so ito yung default na folder. So kapag trust the author, babalik siya dun sa team ko, which is synthwave, no? So basically, we have a folder dito, pero wala tayong kahit anong file. So first, what we're going to do is just add some file like index.html. Right. Actually, we can add some file using terminal. Alright, so for those who, this one is a fancy way to create a file at saka a folder. May mga developer kasi na they're really comfortable with a terminal. So that's why we're using Visual Studio Code. Maraming features in Visual Studio Code na wala sa ibang code editor. And ito yung gamit na gamit sa industry. Right? So if you wanted to parang create some what do you call this? A file. So let's say I'm going to add some command touch. Let's see, style.css. Once I click that, as you can see, I have style.css here. Right? However, I'm using ZSH. Right? So kapag nakaano kayo, yung parang pinaka old o yung standard I just forgot that yung name Hindi gagana yun kasi this one is for command and get, or yung features ng command. So since soon we're going to use get kasi para makita ko yung mga codes nyo. So I will introduce to you with the get. Alright? So punta tayo with get. So ano yung get? Oops. So I'll take this one. Alright. Copy ko, tapos lagay ko dito sa natin, chat box natin. So that, ayan, directly mapunta kayo dito. Alright, and of course, for Materialize CSS, no? Send ko na rin dito sa inyo. Okay, good. So basically, Git is a free and open source distributed version control system designed to handle everything from small to very large project, speed, and efficiency. Alright, so yung Git is, we are using this sa industry for pag-version control or versioning control system. Alright, so ano yung purpose? Ano yung ibig sabihin ng version control system? So kapag nagde-develop ka kasi ng isang application and you're putting some features, tapos later on we're going to add some features and so on and so forth. Yung pinaka one example on that is diba, I think lahat kayo is familiar with Facebook, and Facebook has a new parang name na Meta. Right? So as you can see, kapag nag-open na kayo ng Facebook nyo sa cellphone nyo or other devices, parang nakalagay na doon F. Diba? Parang yung logo ng Facebook. By Meta. Alright, so using that version control system, you don't need to down the system. Or kapag sinabing down the system, yung mismong Facebook, hindi natin magagamit for a while kasi babaguhin niya yung name into Meta. Pero nabago niya without ida-down yung system kapag add siya ng new features because of version control system. Right? So kapag nagde-develop din tayo, you can put that tapos put, tapos and so on. So, nilalagay siya sa isang repository. So, I'm not sure kung anong ginagamit ng Facebook kasi it's a big company. But, I mean, it's really huge, no? Kapag sinabing big sa industry, alam niyo naman din. But yung mga malalaking company, meron tatlong pinagpipilian. Alright? So, Git is necessary, pero yung GitHub, let's say, parang lalagyan siya ng repository. Let's go to the GitHub. Alright? So, I think directly dumiretso siya dun sa GitHub account ko. No? So, maganda kung dito tayo para at least makita niyo yung interface niya. Alright, so sabi niya dito, GitHub, alright, where the world builds a software. Millions of developers and companies build, ship, and maintain their software on GitHub. And the largest and most advanced development platform in the world. So most likely, maraming mga developers, millions of developers, or, well, sa buong mundo kasi ito. So parang let's just put something like this para medyo maintindihan. Meron ba nagpapa-admit? Alright, wala naman. So yun. So, diba, in social media, meron tayong mga account. So, it's a Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and so on. So, yung purpose nun is, let's say, sa Facebook na lang. Alright, so, meron kang pina-follow, meron kang friends, na gusto makita ko ano yung update niya. Alright, so, yung friends mo, nag-take ng photo, tapos put some video, tapos pinost niya, tapos napanood mo. So, yung purpose nun is, tawag din is parang, di ba? So, mga ganun platform is social media. Right? So, maging updated ka dun sa ginagawa na and maybe, alright, ma-inspire ka dun sa anong meron na sinishare niya. Right? So, sa developer, meron din ganun. So, ang tawag naman dun is GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket. Alright, so let's just put it this way. So, yung GitHub is like millions of developers all over the world has their GitHub account. Alright? So, basically, lahat naman ng codes nila, let's say, lahat ng source code ng project na develop nila is nilalagay nila dun sa GitHub. And you can learn that from that way. So, you can also follow some account. Alright? Tapos, lahat ng codes mo, pwede mong ilagay dito. Kasi yung GitHub is parang repository. So, pwedeng, kapag sinabing repository, it's like a container, lalagyan. But, hindi lang yung kaya nung gawin. And also, collaborate with other programmer or co-developer mo sa isang project. So, merong mga collaboration dito na you need to, you can use merging, clone, port, and so on. So, madami na pwede magamit dito. It's like social media na pwede ka rin makapag-interact with your parang colleagues or friends. However, in this case, GitHub is ginagamit para sa mga professional developer. Right? So, for those who wanted to be a web developer, kasi may kita din dito kung kailan ka nag-start. Diba sa Facebook, parang okay, meron ko pang anniversary, diba? Malalaman mo kung kailan ka nag-start ng ginamit yung Facebook. So, something like this, no? So, if you wanted to go to the industry, at ma-impress yung, siguro not impress, pero makita nila na, alright, you have a bare standard, or parang alam mo kung ano yung dapat meron yung mga developer and really into this. So, it's really advantage that, okay, you have not a Facebook account, but a GitHub account. Right? Tapos may kita din kasi yung mga activity. So, paano yung ibig sabihin? Let's go to my GitHub. I have two account for GitHub. I'm using this part na to kasi I don't want to, puro kasi lesson dito. Alright? Sa test ako. Alright? And I also have for my, development. Alright? So, ayoko kasi yung parang napagsasama-sama sila. But anyway, so, let me just go to my account. Yeah. Right. So, ito yun. So, you can put your, also, your profile picture. Alright, you can follow. Alright, so once you created your once once you sign up or registered to your GitHub account, please you may follow this account kasi meron ako mga ilalagay ng mga lesson dito. Yung mga codes na ilalagay ko dito, let's say nag-lesson ako, nag-codes ako. Tapos meron kayong video recorded lesson, no? Yung tamang codes na ginawa ko, I will push this to this repository. I'm going to create a repository. Tapos, doon yung i-check yung tamang source code kapag nagkaroon kayo ng some issue. Alright, so parang madaling salita, nagturo si sir. Tapos, yung tamang sagot is ibibigay pa sa amin. Yes. Oh. Sa web development or sa coding is open source. Right? So, wala pong kahit anong tinatago. That's why it's really important to understand yung isang bagay compare with just mapagana mo. Tapos hindi nyo naman naiintindihan. Right? So, tulad ng sabi ko sa inyo, maraming mga developer dito na ang daming, nandoon yung mga source code nila. So, for example, I'm following 7 people and yung iba mga students ko to. Right? This Brad Traversy is nagtuturo siya sa YouTube and it has millions of parang follower. Right? So, for those who I think baka yung iba, they're quite familiar on that. So, as you can see, he has 233 repositories, right? Project or lesson na ginawa at naka-open lang yan dito. Alright? So, lahat yan. Kung paano niya nagawa yung isang application, is nandito lang. Storybooks, 50 project, 50 days, simple add from React, and so on. So, ito nga, MERN. So, pag sinabing MERN is MongoDB, Express, React, and Node.js. So, it's a full stack dev using JavaScript. So, for those who wanted to be a full stack. So, this one, naka-open source siya. Kapag sinabing open source, you can click that one. Tapos, may kita niyo yung codes kung paano na-develop yung isang application. Let's say, ito yung server.js niya. Ayan. Ganito yung kung paano nag-work yun. Right? So, it's technically an open source. So, you can also put some parang yung private, no? Pero I think you need to buy or subscribe something, Pero, well, kung ipa-private mo, lagay mo na lang sa local machine mo. But kailangan mo pang i-upload dito. But, well, pwede rin, no? Para at least you have a copy dun sa internet. But anyway, yun. Alright? So, you may make sure to create your account kasi definitely yung mga eco-codes natin, I want you to have that as a part of an exercise for this training. And paano nyo maisasend sa akin. So, for example, balik ko dun sa sa repository ko. So, let's say nandito na lang kayo sa account nyo. And you created a parang lesson for today. Okay? So, for example, this one. Okay? So, you created a sandbox Materialize lesson, or what do you call this? Repository. And you can copy this link tapos send nyo sa akin. Or I'm going to create a Facebook page para din yung ipopost at kaya ko kayo makita yung kung ano yung nilesson ko sa inyo for today at nagkaroon kayo ng copy. So, before that, naka-record yung bawat nilesson ko. And of course, I'm also doing that code before you ma-codes nyo. So, parang let's put like this way, no? Nung face-to-face class, kapag nagtuturo ako, I'm going to write a code. I will explain kung paano nangyari. At the same time, anong gagawin ng students? You need to copy that kasi it's a part of exercise. At the same time, to experience that way, you need to parang madumihan yung kamay mo. Kasi iba yung pinapanood mo lang kasi ako, I'm well experienced in coding. So, maaaring baka sabihin mo parang andali lang. Pero kapag ginawa mo na, maaaring maka-encounter ka ng mga some errors, then definitely doon ka matututo. So, kapag naka-flash lang yung screen during the face-to-face, may kita mo kung paano nangyari. Alright, so ngayon, dahil hindi naman pwede tayo mag-spend ng time with that, naka-flash yung screen, naka-record tayo ngayon. So, pwede nyo mabalikan. So, ngayon, dahil yung video recorded, na lesson, kapag nagko-codes na tayo, you can post that, tapos i-codes mo. Pero may instance pa rin na maaari kung magkaroon ng error. So ngayon, babalik ka na naman dun sa pinakauna para panoorin mo siya. So instead, what I'm going to do is just push it to my GitHub account. So please make sure to follow my account, which is Bobby Fetter. So later on, I will send it to you the link. And then, nandoon yung source code nung lesson for today. Alright? So, it's parang, kapag sinabing source code, it's parang at least meron kang pagbabatayan kung tama ba yung ginagawa mo. Kapag na medyo na-struggle ka and you want to look kung tama ba yung ginawa mo at kasi meron kang error, madali yung makikita. Right? So, for those who parang do not use that for parang for the sake of, okay, you're going to copy that. Okay, yung source code ko kakopy mo tapos ipapasa mo sa akin. Alright? Sasabihin mo, sir, I'm done with the activity. Okay, that's good. Alright? So, well, kapag the end of the training, dahil kinapi mo lang at hindi mo inintindi at hindi mo kinodes, guess what? Hindi ka makadevelop ng isang project. Hindi mo kasi naiintindihan. So, that's the, diba yung naalala nyo, I mean, diba, most of your, mga educator, mga nagtuturo sa schools, diba? May mga students na parang, okay, kapag defense na, or diba, during the capstone defense, papagawa ng isang project that they need to diba, defense yung yung project na yung kung paano na-develop. Yung iba nagpapagawa lang or hindi nila alam kung paano na-develop. So, the end of the day, hindi nila alam kung paano i-explain. Or, well, siguro kung na-explain nila. Kasi, check nila pero hindi sila makakagawa ng sarili nila. Alright, so, in that case, I'm going to put a source code for you to be able to analyze. And of course, diba, sabi ko nga sa inyo, web development is open source. Alright, so wala kaming tinatago na tamang sagot. Just try to make sure to understand those things para magamit po. Right? So, yun yung pinaka-main purpose. So, I will teach you the way kung paano nagde-develop yung isang, and syempre yung perspective, no? So, hindi lang basta copy and paste. Alright? So, yun. So, ito yun. So, make sure to have that. Alright? So, I'll go here. So, make sure to install this. So, I have one na-install ko na. So, for those who wala, so make sure to install this GitHub. So, you may click this icon button. So, as you can see, nakalagay dito download for Mac. So, for those who, kasi nababasa na yung yung kung anong OS yung gamit mo. So, kapag Windows, mababasa na. Kapag Linux, mababasa na. So, parang sinasuggest na kagad yung kung ano yung dapat na version or yung kung ano yung latest version and of course kung ano yung OS mo. Alright? So, para sigurado compatible din sa excuse me, sa computer na gamit mo. Alright? So, make sure to download that. Tapos, just go through the process. Next nyo lang. Alright? Install. Tapos hanggang merong magla-launch na bash. Alright? Kapag once na launch kayo ng bash, kasi yung default is just forget na. Just forget. But anyway, magkakaroon kayo ng bash dito. And you can use those commands. And later on kasi I'm going to teach how to use Git and GitHub. Okay? So yun. So make sure to download that and create an account. Alright. So yun yung unang task. Alright. So right after that, since we'll be able to wag na muna kayo magko-command dito ng for let's say touch. You may click this one. Alright? So yeah, let me just close this one. So, using this Visual Studio Code has parang may mga benefits siya compare with other code editor. Okay, kasi meron IntelliSense dito. Na kapag click mo, medyo mas mapapabilis yung pag-put mo ng mga element at ng mga line of code. Alright? So in that case, I'm using Emmet. It's a built-in what do you call this? Built-in extensions sa Visual Studio Code. Na instead na i-codes mo lahat ng to. It's a doc type, HTML, head text, and so on and so forth. Instead of doing that, just click exclamation point and enter that you have an HTML boilerplate. Okay? So, having or using this Visual Studio Code is mapapabuti o mapapabilis yung pagde-develop niya. Alright, so I'm using synthwave theme. So, maybe makita niyo yung codes nyo na, I mean, magkaiba yung color theme natin. Alright, so, well, I will explain it right now kung para saan lahat ng codes na to. Para kahit magkaiba yung color theme natin na mapili nyo, you really, I mean, maiintindihan nyo kung ano yung para saan lahat ng codes na to. Lalo na for the benefit of the new, parang bago lang kayo dito in that case. Alright, so doc type, so this is the first line, di ba? Ibig sabihin yan, less than, exclamation point, doc type HTML. So from the word doc type, sabi niya dito, document type. Alright, so document type, anong klaseng document daw to? HTML. So we know that HTML is hypertext markup language. Alright, so since HTML tong file na to, you need to declare a opening and closing HTML element type. That's the first element. So pag sinabing opening, ito siya. And the closing one is yung nasa baba. So parang like a container, meron siyang parang pinaka-simula at saka yung pinaka-end. Lahat ng nasa loob niya is HTML. Alright? So yun yan. So how about kung napansin niyo yung color ng element tag ko is parehas. Ganitong color. Right? Parang green, something like that. So, how about this lang? Alright. So, kapag meron kayo nakitang ganito, yung parang ibang kulay right after the element tag. Kasi manonotice nyo yung element tag. Unang-una meron siyang less than and greater than. Tapos meron siyang closing. Well, may mga element na walang closing tags like meta. Alright? But most likely, meron siyang opening and closing tags. Alright? So, this part na lang, ang ibig niyan sabihin is attribute. Alright? So, sorry, ano yung ibig sabihin attribute? So, madalas salita, attribute is additional information and maybe a function of isang element. So, dinadagdagan natin siya ng attribute. Alright? So, parang sinasabi natin, alright, this language, this HTML ang language nito. So, mapapansin niyo yung attribute. Ang convention niya is, meron siyang, after the name of the attribute, followed with, ano ba to? Equal sign and a double quote. So, yun yung attribute. This one, N, is the value of nung attribute. So, parang language, English. Right? So, just keep in mind that this one is an element. This one is a attribute. And this one is the value of the attribute. So, kaya meron siyang quote. Ano ba yung value? So, in that case, wala siyang value. But, this one is an attribute. Alright? And yung value ng attribute na lang is English. Alright? So, parang like this. This element meta has a attribute of character set and the value will be UTF-8. So, ito yung boilerplate na most likely kailangan ng isang website. Alright? So, you may research kung para sa yung character set pero it's like a character set. Tapos, parang sinaset yung character pero UTF, yun yung default niya. Alright? Tapos, another meta na element tag for this one is parang dinideclare mo na kagad. Alright, para sa compatibility. So, compatible content. Kasi merong mga, diba yung Internet Explorer and so on. So, something like that. So, baka hindi na sila parang compatible with that. So, parang using this line of code, well, it's a default no? Nung HTML boilerplate. But anyway, this case, another meta is viewport para naman sa parang sinasabi mo, okay, pwede ka sa responsive website. Alright? So, with device, with initial scale, blah. So, yeah. Alright, so someone nagpa-admit, si Ma'am Joanne. Alright. Alright, good. So, let me just continue. Then, what? So, yan, ito yung mga tinatawag na attribute. Just keep in mind right now, hindi nyo naman kailangan maging, alright, parang makabisado to. You don't need to be, parang makabisado. You need to try to understand ano yung mga sinasabi. Right? Kasi lahat yan merong documentation, nasa Google lahat yan, and so on. Right? So, try to understand the way kung paano nag-work yung mga bagay. So, we have a title. So, yung default niya is document. Right? So, this is the first child ni HTML. The second is the body. Right? So usually yung head tags, doon nakalagay lahat ng mga element na merong link and so on and so forth. So parang they call that, yung parang, para sa analogy, no, parang as a human, we have a head, no? Nandun lahat yung parang iniisip natin. So parang, well, dito ka maglagay ng pwedeng link ng font awesome, Materialize CSS, dito pwede lagay sa loob. Tapos kanina sa loob ng body, yun naman yung makikita niyo dun sa website. That's the structure of the HTML. So parang sa human, from head to foot, yun naman yung makikita niyo. It's a representation of your head, your skin, your hair, and so on. So dito mo siya i-develop sa body tags. So meron din siyang opening and closing tags. Right? So for example, this document, so let's add some H1. So just imagine just putting an H1 for those who familiar with coding. Kapag you're not using Visual Studio Code, you need to put some less than and greater than para mag-work siya. Pero in this case, using H1 lang, this one is an element. Ganito na yung mabubuo niya. It's a element abbreviation. You have an H1. And H1 is the heading 1, yung pinakamalaking heading or a title. Right? You can put some set of curly braces to put some value of the H1. Alright, so for example, heading 1. So as you can see, by coding this one, alright, the way paano ko ginawa, ganito yung magiging result. And kapag na-familiarize kayo, medyo mas magiging madali sa inyo. But for now, kapag nagkamali kayo ng codes, hindi na siya gagana. Ayun o, kung napansin nyo, hindi na lumabas yung emet abbreviation. So, what you're going to do is just edit yung dulo, tapos ibalik nyo. Kung napansin nyo, bumalik ulit yung emet. You can continue if you want. H1. Once you enter that, meron ka ng H1. Sige, I'll show you. Doon muna tayo sa pinaka most basic. No? I hope that you're excited. So let me just use the live server, right click, click this one, and we have an H1 or heading 1. This one is a default na font ng isang HTML without any CSS. So if you wanted to put gumanda to, ang gagawin mo is we have an CSS. This one is for the demonstration without a Materialize CSS. Kindly check this one. I put some link, tapos meron akong style sheet na relative na attribute and href. So ibig sabihin ng href is hyper reference. So anong link yung gusto kong mailagay dito o saan ako pupunta. So we have style at CSS. So ngayon kapag it's properly na siya, no? Link na siya. Kapag naglagay tayo dito, ang purpose ng CSS is to style yung element tag. Alright, so for example, you can go for, select natin siya, how to select an element. You can put some H1, so let's say H1 siya, H1, tapos just put a set of curly braces, enter that. So kung ano yung nasa loob ng curly braces, since you select the H1, lahat ng H1 sa loob ng isang document na kung saan nakalink to, kung ano yung i-command mo dito, yun yung mangyayari. In this case, parang you're telling that, okay, ikaw H1, ito pala yung itsura mo. Alright, so I'm going to put some property and value sa'yo. Kasi gusto ko maganda eh. Yun yung kayang gawin ng style CSS. Alright, so let's say, font style. Font family. Let's say font family. Ito, let's say, this one. So from here, no, pag sinave mo yan, nagbago na yung font natin. Right? So parang you're telling that, okay, your element, ikaw yung element na H1, i-add, sinelect kita, then put some curly braces. Kung ano yung nasa loob ng curly braces, yun yung mangyayari. So we call the property na font family. Tapos, anong value daw ng font? With smallest space, right? And you can put some, well, another property. So, let's say font size. Let's say bold. Meron ba? I think not font size, ano pala? Pixel pala. Let's say ano. Font size for 10 pixel. Oops. Siguro, exaggerate natin. So, font size. And medyo mas lumaki na. So, parang you're adding design with your HTML. Alright, so just imagine if you're going to create a front end, no, na itsura, medyo it will take time kasi take time to add some property and value, but it's good to know that dapat marunong kayo mag-add ng property and value for custom CSS. Right? So, but merong tinatawag na components dito na instead of i-design mo yung element, tatawagin na lang natin siya by class name. At yun yung pinakita ko sa inyong pagkarami-raming line of code. Natatawagin na lang natin siya by class name. Alright, so for example, let me just comment this one. Ang ginawa ko is sin-highlight ko. Kinoment ko. Alright, sinave ko siya. So ngayon, babalik siya ulit sa paling save, Control S, or Command S. Balik siya sa pinaka simple niya na itsura. Alright, so using Materialize CSS, check this one. Diba? I discussed the way kung paano siya mag-work or gagawin natin. I don't want you to download this one. Masyadong malaking file. So use this, compiled and modified CSS. Ibig sabihin, you can able to use this mga components niya, right? And put here, right? I think bago mag-CSS, para kaya niyong i-override yung CSS dito. Okay? Put here. Alright, so ibig sabihin, in this case, we're able to use all those components. And later on, baka mamaya gamitin din natin tong JavaScript. Much better to put here. Alright, so once we save, check this one without doing anything. Check this one, meron na tayong much better na heading one. Alright, so kasi si Materialize CSS, for heading, automatic, meron na siyang sariling font niya. Sa tingin niya, maganda for each one. And if you wanted to edit that, to change that heading one, you can also do that. The way kung paano mo gustong mangyari. Alright? So, yun yan. So, yun yung pinaka most basic na way kung paano ko ma-explain sa inyo yung paggamit ng Materialize CSS. But, technically, pwede mo pa siyang tawagin o pagandahin. So, let's say, tanggalin uli natin yung this Materialize CSS. So, balik natin yung check nyo. Bumalik siya sa normal. Balik tayo dito. So, para pagandahin natin siya based on the way kung paano yung gusto natin. So, heading 1. So, let's say color. Gusto mo maging iba yung color ng text nyo. You need to put some property and value. So, you should familiar with the property ng mga CSS. So, let's say, red. Once you save that, yung each one mo magiging red. Alright, based on the sa ginagawa mo. But using Materialize CSS, I'm going to comment this one. Check this one. So, babalik ko siya sa pinaka-normal. We're going to call the components by class name. Alright, so yung pinakita ko sa inyo kanina, so yung maraming line of code. So, let me just this one. So, for example, yan, ito, diba? So, this maraming line of code na yan, ang gagawin natin, para matawag sila is, balik tayo dito. Ayan. So, instead, I discussed about the attribute, diba? So, attribute is additional information or additional function ng isang element. So, we can put some attribute of class. So, yung ginamit ni Materialize CSS para matawag mo yung component is by class name. Alright, so for example, You can call red. Check this one. Oops. Tinanggal natin yung minified and compiled CSS natin. Materialize natin. Once you save that, check this one. Sorry, bakit naging red yung background? Kasi I technically put wrong name ng class. Alright, it's really good to experience that para at least mas malaman mo. Para kasi gusto mong, di ba, yung dito, para ma-target mo yung H1, yung font niya, para maging red yung text, is you need to call that color, tapos a property, and a value of red. Kailangan may colon at saka semicolon. Right? In this case, dapat meron dash text. Once you save that, meron na tayong heading 1 na red yung text. Because of this, kapag tinanggal mo to, which is technically Materialize CSS natin, mawawala siya. Balik siya dun sa normal. Alright, so it's good to know how to work with the CSS. And of course, we're using Materialize CSS. Kasi I want you to develop and use all these components sa loob nito para mas makadevelop kayo ng maganda. And we can able to jump with a programming language right after we covered that HTML CSS with Materialize CSS. Okay? So I hope that nag-enjoy kayo. Can you please give me a yes if you enjoying the class? Alright? And I think we're going to have a break time, no? Siguro, no? Alright, before we continue. So, kung napansin nyo, mas marami yung explanation ko compare with kung ano yung naging result. Actually, as a parang dito, as a well-experienced developer, I can do maraming line of code just to impress you. Pero I will not do that kasi I want you to understand the way kung paano nag-work yung mga bagay. Not just for giving you an example. O sobrang daming line of code pero hindi naman naiintindihan. Alright? So, I hope that you appreciate the way kung paano kung ginagawa. It's really details. And the way kung paano ko na-deliver sa ibang mga students ko is ganun. Kung bakit they nakapag-create sila ng isang project. Alright? Using kung ano man yung i-discuss namin. But anyway, thank you for giving me yes, Cortez. Alright? Jose Marie, Cesar, Mark Angelo, Jeremy, Anthony, thank you for giving me yes. Lovely. And don't you worry, we're going to cover a lot. Sobrang dami. Kasi I wanted to manage na yung information na binibigay ko sa inyo is tama talaga. And of course, yung talagang, for example, no, yun nga, for example, para at least mas maintindihan nyo, gusto nyo maging fit, diba? Punta kayo sa gym, tapos you're going to have a trainer, personal trainer. So, what I did is, gusto ko proper yung form. Hindi ko kayo kagad papabuhatin ng mabigat. Kasi kapag pinabuhat ko kayo ng mabigat, maaaring ma-injury kayo and mag-lead siya sa frustration or hindi na kayo magtuloy. So, like this. I wanted to at least, okay, tama yung form, tapos light lang muna. Ang pinaka-importante kasi is yung tama, yung maging behavior nyo or parang not behavior but yung routine nyo or parang makasanayan nyo is yung tama. Alright? Tapos saka natin dadagdagan ng loads, pabigat ng pabigat. Alright? Tapos tumatama mismo. Alright? So, ibig sabihin, efficient. Kasi diba, merong mga nagja-gym, let's say lang, for this example, diba, ginagawa lang nila pero hindi nila naiintindihan o hindi tumatama mismo yung gusto nilang mangyari. So ngayon, magli-lead yun into frustration. Tapos, magli-live na lang yun. Ay, wag na, hindi to para sa akin. Right? So, technically something like that. So, I want you to at least really understand the way kung paano nag-work yung mga bagay. At hindi ko kayo papabuhatin ng mabigat based on sa sitwasyon. Darating din tayo doon. Alright? Ayoko na magpakita ng sobrang laking project agad just to impress. Wala na. Nandito na ako sa ganitong sitwasyon. And I want you to at least understand na okay, nandito si sir para i-guide kami. Turuan kami. Kaya nga trainer. Alright? Alright? Okay, ito yung dapat mong gawin. I will show you some paano. And please make sure to do that. Right? malalaman ko yan na ginagawa nyo kapag na-discuss ko na yung dito. Kasi I want to check para sa progress. No? Alright? At marami po tayong gagawin. We're going to cover a programming language and other stuff na kailangan na matutunan during this training. Right? So, but anyway, I would like to acknowledge those giving me yes, lovely, John Ray, thank you, Car, Marvin, and for those who have some questions, no, pwede na rin kayong mag-questions dito. Alright, so thank you, Carl. Jaya, medyo nahihirapan po ako mag-follow, pero rewatch ko na lang din po later. Thanks anyway. Yes. For those who parang gusto nyo mag-do follow along, well, you can do that. But since we have a synchronous and asynchronous, this is the time that try to understand and try to listen. But if you think that kaya yung sabayan, why not? Pero naka-record po ito para at least mapanood nyo at magamit nyo during the synchronous. Alright? During the synchronous. Pero, sir, for the rest of the training during the synchronous, pinapanood ka lang namin. No. Meron akong mga hinandang mga activity, lalo na kapag nasa programming language na JavaScript, na at least maramdaman nyo na, okay, nakikipag-interact ako. Meron akong na-ready website na for learning materials on that particular topic. Okay, na kailangan yung sagutan habang something like that. Basta masaya yun. Alright? So, well, thank you for giving me yes, more Genesis, none, nor aim, and Sir Jet, or Jet. Alright? So, but anyway, so let us have a break time. So, maybe a 15-minute break. And we're going to, ayan na si Ma'am Mary Chris. Hi, Ma'am Mary Chris. We're in the middle of parang explaining those yung mga na-lesson this morning, but we're going to take our break time. So maybe at a 15-minute break. Alright? Tapos, we're going to cover a lot of things. So, ano yung mga cover natin later on? So, dun sa CSS, or I mean, nasa typography tayo. I mean, dun sa pinaka most basic muna. Right, so this one, how to create an H1. I don't want you to parang kasi dive into sa mga pinakamalalaki. That's why I explain it to you the way kung paano natin yung ipaprocess. And don't worry, darating tayo sa moves. Parang parang mabibigat na or parang, alright, na complex na. Pero I wanted to ready yung mind nyo na daanan natin lahat ng bagay step by step para at least hindi kayo ma-frustrate. Wow, grabe, overwhelming si sir, kaya niyo buhatin o kaya niyo gawin. Siyempre, I'm doing this matagal na, diba? What do you expect? Pero in their case, gusto ko maging tama muna lahat yung process na. Para maging excited kayo every single day na nag-a-attend kayo. Kasi marami kayong natutunan. Alright? So with that being said, I'm going to see you. I will stop yung recording. Naka-record pa pala tayo. Alright? So make sure to I will stop